Breaking right now, a ticking time bomb at the British Bashing Corporation as the British publicly funded broadcaster is swept into a brand new crisis, this one of its own making. Because I'm very clear that if you have one rule for straight white male presenters, and I'm talking about Gregg Wallace and John Turode here. So the line when it came to Gregg Wallace and John Turode was that making a slightly sexually inappropriate joke, or in the case of Turode, rapping a Kanye West song that included the N-word was enough to have your 2 decades long BBC career ruined, your reputation trashed, and the case of Wallace driving you very close to suicide, then those rules also need apply to females, or people of colour, or gay people, or trans people working within the BBC, right? But that is not the case, because what we have seen over the past few weeks is behaviour by Naga Munchetty, the BBC breakfast host, which has included claims of bullying, claims of telling sexualised jokes to younger producers, claims of making people cry when her porridge is not hot enough, totally ignored by management because of her characteristics. Now, Charlie Stayt, it has been revealed today by The Sun, has also been dragged into this bullying probe. Will he receive different treatment than Naga? But now an exclusive in The Sun today about potentially another senior BBC star? Or are they talking about Naga Munchetty and just not prepared to say it yet? I'll let you be the judge. If you're enjoying what we're doing here on Outspoken, please consider joining our thriving community over on Substack, www.outspoken.live. You can sign up completely for free, but Substack is so important to me. It is a free speech platform. It protects me from big tech cancellation. Plus, you get to communicate directly with me. Head on over www.outspoken.live, enter your email address, and sign up today. Let me take you through this story. Fresh BBC scandal, The Sun reports, after top female star showed dick pic to horrified junior member of staff. Until recently, the jaw-dropping incident had remained a story whispered only in the halls of BBC HQ, but bosses are all too aware that The Sun knows every detail. And their reporter wrote that The Sun can reveal that one of the corporation's leading ladies has been hauled in by horrified Bede bosses and made to apologise for the unsolicited photograph. The woman, who ranked in the corporation's top 50 highest paid this year, just a footnote, and I'm not necessarily saying for sure that there is a direct link, but as a footnote, Naga Munchetty is in those top 50 highest paid stars, was said to have asked a horrified junior member of staff about her preferences and then showed her a nude image on her mobile phone. Precisely whose member was flashed isn't known, but the alleged move was considered so offensive the female talent was called in by execs and asked to apologise. Until recently, the jaw-dropping incident had remained a story whispered only in the halls of BBC HQ. However, the rising outcry over standards at the Beeb following the Hugh Edwards, MasterChef and Strictly scandals means there's no longer room for dirty little secrets. And BBC bosses are all too aware that The Sun knows every little detail of this woman's indiscretion. A source close to the scandal said it's a ticking time bomb in among stalemate. As soon as the name of this woman and details of her bad behaviour are unleashed, it will derail entire departments and mark the first female to be formally swept up into the BBC's wrongdoing roll call. The woman asked the young producer if she liked dick pics and then showed her a picture on her mobile phone. It was meant to be jokey, locker room type banter, but the woman was completely horrified and cried about it. No one minds a bit of office banter, but this was on another level. She felt like it was an intentionally shocking move to intimidate, veiled as a joke. It was way too much. The woman had to apologise to the girl. It's doubled standards, but somehow a woman being involved in showing dick pics feels much more offensive than a male. Jermaine Genus lost his job for sharing such things. The release of her name would be seismic. Colin Brazier. This is a really interesting story to me because I'm torn in a way. Part of me thinks snowflake producers behind the scenes who are uber woke, right, need to deal with a little bit of banter. But, and there's a huge but in this case, if this female staff member showing dick pics to producers was a man, we both know, Colin, they would be out. I mean, Jermaine Genius was out for a few text messages. John Turode was out for rehearsing some Kanye West song lyrics in a bar, which happened to include the N-word. Gregg Wallace was out for a whole succession of, sure, maybe bawdy, maybe inappropriate jokes, but jokes nonetheless. Yet this female star, many people are assuming it's Naga Munchetty. The Sun has not confirmed that, but this female star is quite clearly, I would argue, being given different treatment. How do you feel about it?
Well, I'm going to keep this at the sort of level of generalities, because I always get that slight spider sense twitch at the back of my head when we start naming individuals. I'll leave that to you, Dan. I understand why it's necessary. I think you're probably right. I think there is a danger of double standards. I think the John Turode case was particularly egregious, for him to simply be quoting the lyrics, the Kanye West lyrics that included the N-word, and be fired for that. It's simply extraordinary. I think part of the problem is that there isn't a process which meets the standards, say, you would find and expect to find in a legal setting. The BBC isn't necessarily interested in sifting through evidence carefully and giving it due proportionality. It's interested in keeping the public's confidence and avoiding scary headlines. That's its principal motivation, not serving justice on individuals. To what you began by saying, Dan, I'm very much of that school. I'm a bit of a free speech absolutist, for one thing. I think that people have to scream fire very loudly in a crowded theatre for me to start worrying about it. And I did start my career in newspapers, Yorkshire Post, where things happened in terms of newsroom theatre, which now would make people blanch with horror. And I'm with you. I think people need to remember this.
God, I'm thinking back to the News of the World newsroom, Colin.
Imagine. But, these are people, there were grizzled reporters there who had seen horror upon horror upon horror. And part of their coping mechanism was to drink 4 pints at lunchtime, very unhealthy, but also deploy a degree of gallows humour,
100%.
which your average snowflake would absolutely would recoil from. As I said earlier, the past is another country. They do things differently there. I'm not defending somebody showing somebody else a dick pic. That feels like it's crossed a line. But I can sort of imagine in the stressful world, the early morning hours of, if it is morning TV, people are under enormous stress. Sometimes they do things which in the cold light of day, and with their agent standing on this shoulder, and the lawyer on this shoulder, and HR over there, they probably think was probably injudicious in retrospect.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it's very important for me to say, by the way, this is not an issue where I have a personal issue with Naga Munchetty. I mean, she's paid £355,000 to £359,000 to present on BBC Breakfast, her Radio 5 live show, the UK general election. I have no personal issue with her. Indeed, her husband, very, very nice man who worked with us, on the launch of GB News. He's a very accomplished director. But unfortunately, the BBC has been prepared to throw so many other people under the bus. And I know what it's like to be cancelled over false allegations. So I also feel that someone like Naga Munchetty deserves due process in a case like this. But the problem is, Jermaine Genius, I don't think, received due process. He was out. He was out before anything. And he had sent text messages to a woman who he believed was interested in him. And again, that's a weird one, Colin, isn't it? Because in the past, certainly in television, that would be totally normal, a star meeting someone who they worked with. I mean, he's married, so you could argue that morally that crosses a line. But we are in very interesting times. We're also in very interesting times, Colin, because last night the BBC made the decision to broadcast MasterChef. I don't know if you know about this, with John Turode and Gregg Wallace.
And it got 3 million. It got 3 million viewers, and last time it got 3.7. So there's a downward curve. It is August.
Yeah. Shall we have a little look? Because apparently they edited out the jokes. But first, I never recommend anything unless I truly believe in it. And today I've got something absolutely game-changing for you. Have you ever stopped to think about how crucial comfort is, especially down there? Well, let me tell you, today's Outspoken is proudly sponsored by Sheath Underwear, the revolutionary brand shaking up men's comfort across the globe. And here's what makes it even better. Sheath was founded by a brilliant US Army veteran, Robert Patton, while he was serving in Iraq back in 2007. So that's right, this isn't just an underwear brand. It was designed for the toughest conditions imaginable. Patton was battling relentless heat and discomfort in full combat gear, and he thought there has to be a better way. And there is, because he created it. Let's be honest, traditional underwear just doesn't cut it anymore. Sheath's innovative dual pouch design ensures your comfort all day long, keeping things separate, cool, and fresh. Imagine your essentials being comfortably cradled away from unwanted friction and heat. Trust me, it is a genuinely transformative product. I have tested it at the gym, on long days at work, and I'm telling you, once you've experienced Sheath, there simply is no turning back. They're stylish, they're supported, and they deliver unmatched comfort. It's like upgrading from economy to first class, but for your underwear. So right now, I am offering you a 20% discount. It is exclusive at sheath.com. So 20% off your entire order. All you have to do is use my special promo code Outspoken at checkout. Sheath is the perfect present, by the way, if you're looking for something for your husband, your son, your brother, or hard to buy for mates. But if you are a lady and you end up on the website, you will see there are female versions available too. This is really cool as well. Sheath, did you know, was the first official underwear of the UFC. So you can go to sheath.com or just click on the link below, enter Outspoken on checkout, and then you can thank me later when you're feeling comfortable, confident, and ready to tackle anything your day throws at you. Sheath underwear, redefining comfort one pair at a time. But now, back to the show.
Chicken is wonderful. With sweetness, saltiness, and then raw chili heat. I am really, really enjoying this. Love the texture of the egg yolk across the top of the rice. The lovely fragrance of the aniseed, Thai basil running through the whole thing. It's got style, it's got elegance, but the flavors match it completely as well. It's great.
I mean, this raises so many interesting questions for me, Colin, because you know the BBC will not show an old episode of Top of the Pops that features Jimmy Savile, or but even an old episode of Top of the Pops now that features P. Diddy or, you know, R. Kelly singing a song. And they won't play the moment that the late Queen's death was announced on air because it was Hugh Edwards, a convicted paedophile, who read that bulletin. But don't you think that potentially the pendulum has just swung far too far here? Because really, Colin, think about this. If the BBC genuinely believed that Gregg Wallace and John Turode were terrible individuals who had committed some sort of crime, there is no way they would be broadcasting this series.
Or Dan, they may be so short of material that can get 3 million viewers that they are determined to show it come hell or high water. I think also there is a justification. I mean, we saw the amateur chef, I'm guessing, with what looked like it's put me in the mood for dinner, what looked like a delicious dish. They've said, I think, that it would have been unfair to the chefs who took part for them not to have their moment in the sun. And I sort of get that. Let's not ignore what really matters. I mean, I know celebrities will always shift papers and clicks and all the rest of it, but let's not lose sight of the bigger picture, which is that when you, and nobody does anymore, but if they still switched on to the Today programme, and listen to the North American editor or the international editor in the Middle East, depicting in panto terms Donald Trump as only ever getting things totally wrong and never doing anything at all, which could be considered to be a success. And ditto Benjamin Netanyahu in Israel. The corrosive impact on public trust of people being seemingly so partial, I think that's the most serious threat the BBC faces, not whether it actually broadcasts a back issue of MasterChef.
I mean, I couldn't agree with you more. But doesn't this come down to the fact, though, that the BBC has now completely lost the trust and the faith of the British population? I mean, if you look at this front page of The Sun today, it's just embarrassing, isn't it? It's just embarrassing. You know, BBC Stew and talking about triple chaos because you've got the MasterChef airing. you've got the dick pic story, you've got the Charlie Stayt story. I mean,
do you know what, Dan? I don't think we're far off a tipping point.
yes,
Where
yes.
actually it just doesn't shift papers. I mean, papers aren't going to be around for much longer anyway. But the BBC becomes so marginal. You know, EastEnders, 30 million viewers not so very long ago, 3 million now. Let's not even talk about the figures for things like the news channel or news broadcasts or whatever it is. The BBC is in terminal decline, and a lot of that is self-inflicted. And a lot of people have voted with their feet and their license fee, and I rejoice at that. I think the idea of people being compelled to pay on pain of prosecution for a service which they actively feel misrepresents their interests in the way that BBC, I'm afraid, has done in recent years in particular. It's not long for the world, and people like you, I've said this before, and it's not to be sycophantic, it's simply to state the truth, Dan, but people who have ventured all and with enormous entrepreneurial spirit and risk-taking zeal have decided that they can offer an alternative. And you only have to look at your figures and look at their figures, and you see which way the wind is blowing.
Well, thank you for saying that. But yes, I mean, I 100% agree. And I do think, and actually it was David Frost, Lord Frost, who posted earlier this week.
Did you see some of the people who slagged him off for it? People like Gavin Barwell.
Need you say more? Who's more in touch with the country? Because the argument David Frost was making, right, was actually what's even the point of watching BBC News anymore? Because even if you didn't agree with the BBC in the past, you probably felt you had to watch it because it was to an extent, right, reflecting where the country was at, what the country was talking about. Well, this week, Colin, it could not be further from the truth. I mean, I put myself through the ordeal at 10 o'clock at night because I feel I have a duty to see how off-base the mainstream media is, and I get lots of ideas about what I need to talk about on the show. But I'm not exaggerating, Colin. For the past 2 weeks, with Britain on the brink, usually every night, the first 15 to 16 minutes of a 30-minute bulletin has been taken up with Gaza. Then about the next 4 or 5 minutes, usually a story about Donald Trump or Jeffrey Epstein. And I think, does that not tell you where the BBC thinks
it's not,
the British population
is
at?
It's not, as you know, and as you've said over the years, Dan, it's not just the BBC. You've got a cohort of media workers who have totally lost touch with the idea of a customer. They are broadcasting, they are arranging schedules, ordering running orders and telling and booking guests for their peers, for their contemporaries. They are putting telly together for other telly executives, not for the viewers.
Thank you so much for watching Dan Wootton Outspoken. Please click on my face just to the bottom left to subscribe to this brand new independent news source and turn on the notification bell so you'll be alerted to our brand new live shows, uncancelled interviews, and special royal episodes. Outspoken is also now available as a podcast, so you can listen to the show every weekday on the go, wherever you are.